Willis.
That's right. In spirit and mind.
I was
Antique.
almost said the antique, but that sounds good. That sounds bad, I mean. Like you're really old.
Well, I did cross that. I had a birthday recently and crossed that big number,
I had a
maybe like to
birthday
talk about it.
recently, too.
And you
but...
crossed a small number. Yeah.
Oh, well, not that much different than yours. I didn't cross anything significant, but I don't think it's. Are you like 70?
No, why am I laughing? I shouldn't be laughing. No, 60. I hit the big 6-0.
No. Are you kidding?
I did.
I think I remember us talking about your age before and I being shocked because you look my age. So you don't look 60. You certainly don't act your age.
No, I certainly don't. I will agree about that. Yeah.
But that's a good thing. And that used to be a bad thing, but these days I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. I'll live with it.
It used to be act your age, and it's like, no way, man.
No.
Well, cool. And I call you I called you Antiki, which is a word I probably, no, it's probably been used before, but that's because you are in the middle of like an estate sale or something. You're antiquing.
Yeah, I am. I'm crawling through a home in New England looking for goodies, and I have a sale coming up this weekend.
Cool.
So I'm in the discovery stage, which is always fun. It's like a treasure hunting.
Mm-hmm. That's fun.
It is fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like it.
I like what I do, and I like UFOs.
I like Batman. Remember that? The old Prince Batman song?
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. I like that song. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so the show today, my guest is Morgan Beall. Does anything about what I have just said surprise you in any way?
No, we talked briefly about him last week, I believe.
Mm-hmm. But I didn't call him Morgan Beall then.
Yeah, it was Morgan, but I don't remember the last name.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Because I've been mispronouncing Morgan's last name for years, even though we talk on a nearly weekly basis, at least some kind of little discussion, definitely monthly, and for years and years, and I've been mispronouncing his name. I just found out it's Morgan Beall. Is how you and if people saw his last name, some of you are familiar with him, you would understand why I am shocked by this. But he only just corrected me.
Now, how's it spelled?
Beall.
Yeah, so it's the German pronunciation. Oh, B-E-A-L?
Or B-A-E-L. It might be B-A-E-L.
If it's B-A-E-L, then the German pronunciation is Bell.
Yeah, so that's what it is.
The second vowel is prominent.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's what it is. That's interesting. Yeah, I just found that out. Reminds me of Beall. Isn't there like a word for Satan, a name for him that is similar to that?
I wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm. You don't know much about Satan?
No, I'm not. That's not my area of expertise.
I thought you might.
No,
you're definitely a heathen. And hedonistic with you and no. But so anyway, that is my guest. He is the state director for Florida MUFON. He does a lot of other things. He's part of the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UFOs, the group that did the investigation on the Homeland Security video from Puerto Rico, which we've talked about quite a bit. I've had him on the show before, but it's been a while. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have him on is the MUFON Symposium, because it's in Orlando, Florida this year, and he has, been a big part of organizing it. So we talked about the different speakers, but then also talked about different updates related to those speakers, including things that he's working on. So a very fun show.
Great. Can't
and
wait to hear it.
informative. Yeah, pretty cool. So that is the show coming up in a minute. But before that, why don't you and I talk about some UFO news?
Sounds perfect to me.
And I know you're busy, but I hope you came prepared with a story that you would like to discuss.
I did.
Good.
All
Good
right.
Boy.
So the headlines on this is an Oregon UFO distorts air crossing a property at 4 feet. I love this story, mostly because of the witnesses. I'll talk about them in a minute. But this happened back on July 14th of this year, and an Oregon witness in Lebanon reported a fast-moving object crossing his property just 4 feet off the ground, and it created a water-like distortion in the air. And this is a MUFON case. And so I quote here, something traversed between my wife and I about 4 feet off the ground that made an unidentifiable noise, and the speed of which was extraordinarily fast. The witness stated, neither of us place any credence in aliens among us or visitations. The witness believed the physics against such things are irrefutable. Because his career is actually in astronomy, and he's at the Mauna Kea and the telescope in Hawaii, and his wife is a banker and accountant. Well, the object somehow created a distortion, and another quote by him, whatever it was created a distortion in the air between us for an instant. We live in a suburban area, and our residence is surrounded by fir forests to the right of me, whence it came, about 150-meter tall hill about 50 meters away, which we also own. Aside from the noise of the event, there was an absolutely no report one might ascribe to the discharge of a firearm. I don't really understand that, but anyway, it seems like this just kind of defied things that he can recognize, and both him and his wife have like strong core beliefs, as they state, that these aren't real, but he has no way to describe what it is. It's pretty interesting.
It is really weird. I didn't find in that report, like they said it went between him and his wife, but I didn't see any indication of how far away they were from each other.
Yeah, that's right.
So there is someone who suggested a dirt devil. I don't know if that would necessarily fit, though.
Because I understand, I know what dirt devils are, and you see them out your way a lot, too.
Oh, yeah.
Generally don't move. They're more stationary than anything else.
They do move.
They don't really move along fast.
But not fast. Sometimes they can move kind of fast. In fact, we have a ton of them out here, and it's funny because in Colorado you would see them once in a while, especially if you went out into the plains. But they're like crazy out here. It reminds me of a level from Mario Karts or Mario Brothers. Had a level 2 where there's lots of dirt devils, and you get swept up in on them, which is always fun. But it's not like they zoom or anything. They move kind of. In fact, it was kind of crazy. I was driving through the parking lot, and one came through the parking lot and headed straight towards this lady, and she got whipped up in it.
Really?
She didn't fly up in the air or anything. It was just her clothing kind of went all over, and it's dirt, so she probably got messy and got that junk in her car. But so I don't know that Dirt Devil fits. So it is kind of a weird account.
Yeah, a good one. I never even thought of that. But he doesn't really describe whether the object was a solid, craft looking or anything like that either.
Some other person who commented thought that it was probably a hoax because of some of the verbiage that is used. It's a little bit flowery with statements such as "from whence it came." But I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they talk like that, but yeah, you're right. It is interesting. And would they actually put all that effort into doing something with MUFON?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, so that's a weird one. That's an interesting sighting report. So a couple other sighting reports, and I should say, I didn't say this before, like we haven't had a show. I mean, I've been doing some traveling in a couple of weeks. I've been doing some traveling, and we didn't have some articles for a little while there because I've also been closing on my house. So I move into a house at the end of this week. So I'm going to be really struggling to get another show for Monday. I'm going to attempt to, so I hope I can. But yeah, it is awesome. I'm really excited about it. But of course, anybody who's bought a home, especially a new build, the last week where you have to do the walkthrough and make sure things get fixed and finished before you move in, and you've got all this moving schedule and blah, blah, blah. So it's a lot of work, and so I'm kind of frazzled and all over the place. But that's why we've been missing some shows, but we should be back on schedule here. But this is one thing, also we didn't have some stories because Roger Marsh was sick at the end of last week, and he's been writing stories, daily on MUFON UFO sightings. He's feeling better this week, so we have stories up this week. But I have also posted a couple stories from the magazine. So we used to have a magazine, Open Minds Magazine. We're actually going to have another Open Minds Magazine, but it's not going to be in print. We're going to do a video news program called Open Minds Magazine, where we're going to do some in-depth stories, UFO stories. So I'm real excited about that. That'll be coming out soon, and we'll do that monthly, kind of like a magazine. But the old print magazine, we don't print anymore. So some of the issues that have sold out, or we don't even have anymore, I'm going into the archives and bringing out some of the stories in those issues to share with people, because we did a lot of hard work and a lot of hard research on those stories. So two of them that I posted in the last week, one of them is the Delphos, Kansas sighting. Now this is a lot of people feel maybe one of the best physical evidence cases. It happened in 1971 where this kid walking around with his dog, saw this craft come zooming over, and it went over their property and flew off. It looked kind of like a mushroom, and there was a ring left in the ground. And Ted Phillips investigated that. Also, APRO investigated that, and you can read all the details of that story. But another one was somewhat inspired by you, but this is a Blue Book Unknown, and these are some of my favorites. There were some Blue Book files, Blue Book cases that were investigated, and they never figured out what they were. So in Oregon and Washington on July 4th in 1947, of course, this is the famous weekend that the Roswell crash happened, somewhere around that period of time. This is when that happened. But these are some police officers in Oregon and Washington who saw UFOs. And it's a case where, they couldn't figure out what they were, and the Air Force actually determined this one to be an unknown. So it's a really fun case. The reason I say that you somewhat inspired me is that you asked about UFO sightings on July 4th, and there are some, of course, in the history of things, but we didn't get many. I think we got one this year that of note, but this is a July 4th sighting. So this happened during the day, however, and one of the suggestions was that possibly this was aluminum shards falling from explosives for July 4th, which is kind of a stretch. Doesn't really fit if you read the story. But it's a great sighting.
It is a great sighting, and I love when police officers are involved. And there were not just one or two, but there were how many total?
It varied. Some of them reported to see several. One of them reported one group of officers, because it started, and I love how it started. It started in Oregon with this police officer who's on his break, and he's behind the police station feeding the pigeons. Yeah, it's so cute. And he sees a disc-shaped object in the sky, several of them. He goes inside. They broadcast this out to the police, other police. Hey, be on the lookout. APB for silver flying saucer. And So other police looked outside. Some saw them in groups. There was a police force in Washington that heard this come over the radio, and they were hanging out inside. And they decided to go to the roof and take a look. And sure enough, they saw several craft in a V formation. But it was all pretty much silver disc-shaped objects that were seen.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. That's a great one.
Yeah, really cool. So you guys can check that out at openminds.tv, where you'll find the rest of this news that we've been discussing. So I think that's about it for news. We've talked quite a bit about some news. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I think I'm all done for today.
Oh, one last thing I want to mention, which is essentially a plug for you, because you had Don Schmidt and Tom Carey on your show. And you,
last week, yep.
Yeah, last week, for some reason, you decided to drudge up the infamous and dreaded Roswell slides incident. I thought, Martin is crazy. What is he doing? This whole thing we want to forget because it was ridiculous, and he's just going to get frustrated. But you were very honest with your opinion that, the slides, when you saw them, looked like a mummified human body. And you brought these guys on, and I think what you did actually turned out to be very important because it kind of gave some closure to the whole thing, right?
I think so, and thank you so much for mentioning that. Yes, for the first time publicly, as far as I know, Tom Carey admitted that it was actually a mummy and that it was a mistake, and they both sort of apologized, in a roundabout way, and just saying, they should have really looked into the owners of the slides to begin with. And I wanted them to, everyone heard the other side of the story, and I just wanted to hear their side. But, I have gotten I have gotten some hate mail about the show, which is,
really?
Typical. Yeah, but it's just, why did you bring that up again and blah, blah, blah. But, I think you're right. I think there is some closure. And Kevin Randall wrote me and brought up some good points that were missed. But, I just can't keep going on with it. So, but thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. I just think, I wasn't sure what good can come of it, but now that it's happened, I see that, wow, this is the good that can come of it, that these guys can finally express this, and you're the perfect person to do it because you're not there to beat them up, but you want to talk about the facts of the story. So I would argue that, I think I'm one of the only people, if not the only one, who got to interview the slide owner, the representative, Adam Dew. I don't feel that he's culpable either, personally. I think he seemed very genuine. And, of course, my listeners, anybody can go listen to the interview I did on this show with Adam Dew. And I think he was an honest guy. I don't think he was trying to trick anybody. He didn't do anything fooling anybody. He released the high-resolution photographs later and after the event. But that's not, if the investigator should have asked to see those prior to releasing anything anyway, if they, I think are alleging, did not see them
That's
earlier.
Right. That's kind of the whole thing, was they never saw the high-res scans, and that they were working with poor quality that they couldn't get the de-blurring done on or anything. So, once that went out, the rest is history. But yeah.
And Jaime Maussan the entire time said there were higher resolution ones that exist. So they knew they existed. So they shouldn't have gone forward without seeing those first. And
that's their mistake. They should have, if they were going to sign a non-disclosure, they should have never signed it without seeing the original slides.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So, but I don't want to beat up the guys. I don't want to have them on my show to talk about this topic. Because you've already done it, and I know it's an extremely embarrassing situation for them. And I have a lot of respect, especially for them. I know Don Schmidt well, and I have a lot of respect for him. And he's got a great book coming out about the children of the witnesses to Roswell and their perspectives on Roswell and everything that's happened with all of that. So I think that stuff is really interesting and fascinating, and I think people should continue to look at their work because, not just throw it all out because of this one, I think, honest mistake.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So good job, Martin. Well done, buddy. You did a good thing for ufology by being brave enough to bring them on your show.
Well, thanks.
Yep. I'm serious.
Thanks, man.
I'm not just kidding. I'm just
All
not
right. Well,
pulling
hey.
your leg here and trying to mess with you like I often do.
No, all good. Thanks for actually bringing that up.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So Podcast UFO, everybody can check that out. Good show. Good show. All right. Well, that's it. We'll go on with the interview, but thank you, Martin, for making the time to come and talk to us. I know you're really busy this week.
Very good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'll be talking to you next week.
Okay. Talk to you next week. Let's talk to Morgan Beall. I am very happy to welcome back to the show Morgan Beall. Hello.
Morgan Beall. Hello, how you doing, Alejandro?
Do I say your last name right even?
Everybody gets it wrong, that's okay.
Is it Beall?
It's Beall, actually.
Beall.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I love knowing that because now I'll say it correctly. And you know what's really funny? Is that because I haven't recorded the beginning of the show yet, at the beginning of the show I'm going to say your name right, and then we'll get into the interview and we'll have this part. It's like Leslie Kane. It took a while for her to share that was the right way to pronounce it, and now I do that all the time, but it's nice to have the correct pronunciation.
It is. Yeah, it's an easy one, but I'm forgiving because everybody does it.
Well, you are, because I've known you for years. You've been on this show before, and, we talk, like, pretty frequently. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time I've known how to correctly say your name.
That's okay.
That's funny. Well, you know what? People I've known for many, many years pronounce my name wrong, so I guess I shouldn't feel too bad.
Well, that's a hard one to say for some people.
Yeah, it is. And I'm forgiving also, so I don't mind. So let's get on with UFOs, Mr. Bell.
Yes.
This is so weird. It's like Art Bell. It's just changes almost my perception of you having this different pronunciation. So, Mr. Bell, I'm going to say that the whole time, I think, now. One of I guess the most exciting thing going on right now in your life is the MUFON Symposium.
Yes, exciting is, I guess, an understatement. I mean, you know as much as I do, probably more than I do, on what it takes to organize and help organize these things. And it's, it's a full-time job on top of my day job. So it's roughly, 2 to 4 hours every day after I get home from work. I sit down and I go through and create content and work with, all the little things that people don't get to see in the background, all the working out the audio visual and the contracts. And it's a distraction for sure from my research, but, I only have to do this once in a blue moon, so I'm okay with it.
Well, and that's the thing is that we do it every year, so yeah, you're right. We do know very well what goes into it. However, I remember that first year, and it's that by far is 10 times, if not 100 times, even though it was about the same amount of work, it was 100 times more nerve-wracking than it is, having done it, even after the third year, it starts to feel more routine. So now it feels more routine, but that first year is so nerve-wracking because you want everything to go so well. There's so much to keep on track of, and it's just like the anxiety level is very high.
Yeah, to say the least. But yeah, it's lucky though. I was, blessed with a good team. I have a lot of people I can pull from. So we have a lot of great, talented, people that have actually put on other types of conferences, business conferences, and things like that. And so I kind of lean on a lot of those people for the business aspect and for the organization, the AV. So we have a pretty good team in Florida to work with, and I know HQ's having an easier time at working with us, and getting this thing organized. And, I think the fun part actually was was looking for the speakers and working with people that, we want to see speak at the symposium. And we really put our heart and soul into that to, really find a few people that, really have never been out there that should be. And that's what we did. We started selecting, and, like most times, you have some attrition because of either health issues or travel, things like that kind of, mess up with the schedules that we have. And so, but, we still get a pretty good set of speakers, and I think we're ready. So.
Yeah, you've got a great set of speakers this year, so it's really exciting. I love that it's not, like you said, names necessarily you see all the time, which gets me excited, because that's what I try to do at the Congress, is have different people, but they have great information to share. So it is exciting. I was really surprised, because I know you were kind of fretting for this, and you guys were looking really hard for a great keynote speaker, and you ended up getting a fabulous one.
Absolutely. It was actually kind of a surprise to myself. I knew about him for a long time. Just didn't really think that he would be interested, because I know he doesn't speak that often, if not at all.
And the person is Robert Hastings.
Yay! Yeah, it's Robert Hastings, and I've had a few good conversations with him. I don't know if you know this, but I do a lot of the little speaker profile videos. I cut those, and I put them on the MUFON National YouTube channel. And the one thing I wanted to do this year was to get them to communicate, what they're doing this year, they're talking about, but more importantly, I had them all answer this question in their own way, which was, what does the UFO UAP phenomenon mean to you personally? Like, what got you into this? Why are you here? And some of the answers, we don't ever get to hear that from some of these people, and when they start talking, and I tell them, look, don't prepare, because it'll sound prepared. I want you to just answer the question. And when they did, and I made you do it too, and you guys gave some really unique and interesting, perspectives on the UFO phenomenon and what it means to you, why you guys got into this. And so it's really interesting to see all the different perspectives, and even Robert Hastings, he's had a personal. He started out his life at a place that had such a fervor in this phenomenon at Malmstrom Air Force Base, when he used to live with his parent, his mother and father. His father worked at that base. He was an officer there. So he got to hear all the stories. And so that, that's kind of like some of us, we get to hear stories. Like, that's kind of why I'm in it, is because I heard stories from family members. I heard stories from my father. I heard stories from relatives. And to hear, a little bit about, why Mr. Hastings, got involved in this as much as he has. And it was all because it kind of started out, this real serious interest, where it wasn't like a fleeting, scary story around the campfire. This was like, life-affecting experiences his family members were having, or his one particular family member. And so it's just interesting to get to hear that from the different people, and it's what I look forward to. It's not only, going to hear what these people have to say, but just what they experience themselves, and something new that they can share with the public in some fashion.
That it was a great idea to do those videos, and I just thought of an idea, actually. And, I would love to do this, not to put you on the spot right now, but if you guys want to do this with MUFON Radio, I just think it would be really interesting, because the videos are cool. People should go to the MUFON YouTube and watch them. And, of course, we're posting videos from MUFON YouTube all the time, because Roger Marsh is posting those sightings, so people can find it through openminds.tv, or just Google MUFON HQ, I think it's called. I should know. I think I set it up, but yeah, it was a great idea. The videos are so much fun, but what would be fun And if you guys would allow me, I would love to do this. But if you want to do it, if you think it would be better to do it maybe on MUFON Radio or something, that's cool too. But I would love to take all the audio from all of those videos and put them back to back and have one podcast that is all of those audio.
Yeah.
That would be so fun.
Yeah, cut minus the, hey, I'm going to be at the MUFON Symposium, but then just leave their stories, talk about when they start.
Or even just leaving that, they'll be at the MUFON Symposium, because that way it helps promote the symposium. Oh, sure. It talks about what they're going to be talking about, which will hopefully entice people to come to the symposium, or entice people to get the DVD or go watch it online or whatever to get the information if they're not going to be there. But that would be fun. It'd be fun to have them all back to back to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and you have to realize these people are people, and too. And
are you sure?
And it's like, so often and I'm not, criticizing any one specific type of event, but rarely do you get to hear their personal experience, or at least their belief in why they're dealing. I mean, I even say myself, it has nothing to do with belief. It has something to do with the evidence and the witnesses that are there. But you get to see their perspectives on why, what motivates them, and it's really neat to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those videos are a lot of fun. So, like you said, Robert Hastings, the big deal is that he doesn't go out and do talks. No. I've been trying to, I'll fess up. I think I've even said this before. I've been trying to get him to come to the UFO Congress, but he likes to speak at universities, and yes. I can understand that because he is protecting the integrity of the information he has. He has witnesses that are typically military, so it's very high level stuff. But
and that's interesting, that you bring that up, because that's something that always comes up, and you always get a few people that say, oh, well, you have this one person on the roster that just totally throws everything out the window. And I try to explain to people, look, this is a symposium. I mean, if I have to explain the definition of a symposium to you, you can look it up on Wikipedia if you want to, but it's meant to share all these different ideas, to bring different, you could have people up there that you completely disagree with, and that's fine. That's what this forum is for. It's there for people to come forward and talk about their research. This isn't like, we understand that, some people may not like certain speakers. They might not find them, credible, or they might not like the person personally. And trust me, you've probably, as much as I have gotten received those types of emails. And so I try to explain to people, it's not about any one person's belief or system or credibility. If they feel that their research is credible and they have the mode to present it, sure, there's a forum for them to talk about it. Does anybody have to agree with them? No, not at all.
Yeah. And, they don't need to go to the lectures they don't like.
Oh, they can skip the ones they don't want to see.
Yeah, so, no problem.
It's real easy. So,
I want to go down the list quickly,
sure.
And I'll skip over the people that I know my listeners will be familiar with. Not because they're not important, just because I've had them on the show, sometimes frequently, but they can go listen to the show. But I want to make sure they understand who some of the people are they may not know. So, for instance, we talked about Robert Hastings.
Yes.
I think I've already told people what I'm going to be talking about, but there'll also be Ben Moss and Tony Angiola. Did I say that right?
Angiola. Yeah, Angiola.
What are they going to be covering? I actually haven't had them on the show yet.
Yeah, and that would be great. You could probably have them both on at the same time.
Yeah, that would be fun. And I've been meaning to. I just...
Well, obviously, they've been working on a case called, the Socorro case. I'm sure everybody's heard about that. Now, that's very familiar with a lot of people. They've probably seen, countless documentaries and TV shows with it on it, lots of books written about it. But they've done quite a bit of work over the last couple of years on just researching that specific case. And they actually have a specific resource. I mean, not only have they had access to the NICAP investigations, some of the Blue Book files that they've pulled on that case, but they've also worked exclusively a lot, too, with Ray Stanford. And, depending on, people's opinion, Ray Stanford is one or the other, but he's actually been there and done that. Conducted real research that was funded by the U.S. government, at one time. So he's had his hands on, and so from that experience, Tony and Ben have really used and just taken his research and moved forward with it with his cooperation, but they're pretty much conducting it and with his permission, with his content, and it's interesting. I've read the stories. It's a trace evidence type case with a police officer. But, I don't know all the details, and I think they have a lot more details, too. I mean, they even have documents that haven't been really shared with the public, I guess you could say. I don't know. I'm sure there are some corners that have done their digging and have found some of these obscure documents, but for the most part, the public probably hasn't seen most of these because they just haven't been written about. So it'll be really interesting. They've got pictures, old videos of the area, of the scene, so to speak. And so it'll be a really interesting talk to see what their perspective is. And, we also thought it was important, too. They were MUFON field investigators, and so they work together in Virginia. I think Ben Moss is the chief investigator, and Tony is a state section director in Virginia. And they stay busy, and they do pretty good work.
Yeah, I think that's great. I always think it's great, and I always say this, is that it's always great when MUFON highlights the work of MUFON people, because we often have a lot of them at our conference, state section directors, field investigators, what have you, because there's a lot of MUFON people out there doing a lot of great work.
Yeah, it's a kind of an unsung hero, I guess, kind of job, or thankless job, as they say.
Yeah.
And but they do it because, they believe in the mission and the goals that we stand for.
And just so for people who don't know, Socorro was an incident that happened in the 60s. There was a police officer essentially chasing a speeder. He heard an explosion. He goes over, this is in New Mexico in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
He goes and he sees this kind of egg-shaped craft. It lifts off and flies away. He saw a person, I guess, near it. And it was investigated and highly regarded by many people. In fact, Hector Quintanilla, the last Blue Book chief for the Air Force, who was a skeptic on everything, said this was one of the cases that actually he felt was compelling.
Yeah, definitely. And it is one of those cases. It's a head scratcher, and nothing's been explained yet, other than somebody, I've heard a few people say that it was us testing our moon landers, but I don't think somebody would be landing a moon lander in the middle of the desert by accident.
And I don't think they had the capability of taking off and flying away like that, not in our gravity. So the next move is another MUFON person, the next person. In fact, he calls himself MUFON Man on
Bill
Facebook.
Schroeder.
Yeah, Bill Schroeder.
Yeah, he's an interesting fellow. I remember meeting him a while back, actually as a witness. He's actually a witness to a case, or a flap, so to speak, 1967, a date you probably hear a lot. They had a major incident on the east coast of Florida, and we believe probably the entire eastern seaboard. And as you know, during 1967, we were having some of these incidences around the nuclear facilities, much like what Hastings is going to be talking about. All these are, not all of them, but the majority of these cases are on 1967. And Bill, he was basically a kind of a radar operator dealing with ground-to-air anti-aircraft missile systems. Forgive me, Bill, if I didn't name the exact system, but he'll be there to present. but he when they were tracking him and his cousin, who was at another tracking location. At the time, it's funny, they were related, and they still live near each other today, and they're actually both field investigators, which is awesome. They were tracking some unknowns, and essentially, and they painted the target, as not a technical term for it, but they painted the target with the radar system, and the object in turn somehow created some sort of countermeasure and blew out their systems. And when he left, he got out of his operating trailer, and went out to look what this thing was, and he could just describe like what looked like a fireball with a tail, and it just moved. But the thing that didn't make any sense is, they were tracking these things for a while, and they were making zigzag patterns all over South Florida, over the water and over the Florida Straits area. It's a very interesting case, and it involves also a MiG-21
wow.
from the Cuban Air Force, which there was a set of them, and one of them, I guess, had got radar contact and actually painted the target to target it with their systems, and it also did the same thing to this MiG, going I'm sure pretty fast, and anybody knows or who's in aviation, if you turn off the engines to a supersonic jet at high speed, it just basically starts tumbling and falls apart and killed the pilot.
Wow.
And then at the same time, within a week and a half to 2 weeks, the Crestview School incident happened in Miami. So it's a string of things that happened. This is just the Florida cases. I mean, we don't know.
Wow.
We know that there was chatter going on because they were listening in on the chatter from NORAD, and they saw these things coming over what's called the dew line over Canada, and they're thinking fast movers or missiles or bear bombers, these Russian bombers bringing nuclear weapons. So that's what they're looking for. But these things obviously defied convention. They were moving too fast, and just the aeronautics of these things didn't meet conventional aircraft. But I'm sure the story is, as they say, is just the tip of the iceberg on this one. Mm-hmm. And he keeps finding these connections with the cases much larger than just himself and his cousin. So,
cool. That sounds exciting. Wow, I'm excited for that.
Really
one.
neat. Lots of detail, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really great.
Cool. So other people on the list, Cheryl Costa, we'll actually skip her a bit because we talk to her often. And she writes for the Syracuse New Times, and actually she writes pretty much every Friday, and we feature her in our UFO News headlines. David Marler is going to be speaking about a New Mexico case, I know. He's also great. Yeah, we've had him on. In fact, we had him talk about Farmington on our show.
Sure did.
But for time, we'll keep moving. And this one's exciting. Erling Strand, tell us about him.
So, how we always talk about UFOs, and a lot of people, the most popular thing to talk about is origin, right? We all think ET hypothesis all the time. And this is unique because Erling Strand is a professor at a major university. And he in Norway, and he's been looking into what's called the Hesdelin lights for a while. In fact, his institution is doing it on a regular basis. And he's developed a system which, as you know, is now involved with the UFO Data Group in developing a camera system to collect information about these lights and in other similar instances, and specifically they're using the Hesdelin light location and phenomenon as a kind of a test bed. And they've actually discovered some really interesting stuff. And, there's some hypothesis that some of this might be natural, which is fine, I think is a great thing, but it's still unknown. It's a mystery. They don't understand it quite, how these lights are produced and why they're, seen by the locals on a regular basis, doing maneuvers that, seem like they're being controlled by some sort of intelligence. And maybe they are. We still don't know, but they just know that there's some really strange attributes to these things. And he's going to be talking about, he's actually going to be showing the images that they've captured. Using spectral cameras specifically designed to measure the spectrum, the light spectrum, and among other things like data that they've been collecting in the field over the many years. And so he's going to be talking about that, and that's something we've probably some of us have heard about, but this is a real scientific study of an unknown aerial phenomenon, and some of the findings are just so intriguing. It just gives you, especially if you're a science junkie like myself, you get goosebumps talking about it because it's like this is stuff we don't know about our own planet or our own physics, and this is something new, and it's all because they're using scientific method to observe a consistent phenomenon that they've been recording there, and it's going to be really neat to see what he has to say and what his findings are to date, and you can always go to their website. I think they have like Hesdelin.org or something like that. Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's HESSDALEN.org.
And does he live in Norway?
I believe he lives, yeah.
So you guys are flying him all the way out?
Yeah, yes, yeah, we are. It's definitely worth it.
Cool. And does he speak good English? I mean,
yeah,
okay.
He does. He gives presentations a lot at many different universities, including English ones.
Awesome.
So he's easy to understand. So, but he's just a really neat guy, really nice guy too.
Yeah, to go off on a tangent just for a minute, because I know this is some of what we wanted to talk about, and this is kind of a good time to do it. I think we've got time. We'll still touch on the other speakers. But, we've talked a lot with Mark D'Antonio. We were honored enough to have him with Doug Trumbull at the UFO Congress. You guys have had him at MUFON as well. In fact, we're going to have an interview going up. I'm so excited about this. We did one of my most favorite interviews I've ever done, and of course everybody knows I've done a lot. But we did one with Doug Trumbull, and he's, been involved with all of my favorite movies, so it was so fun, and we're going to get this interview up soon. But anyway, they're working on UFOTOG, and we've talked with Mark so much about this on this show over the years, but so people are familiar. Then you mentioned UFO data, where they're going to gather some data and stuff. And so you have a project in Florida that is similar. Is that correct?
Yes. We just started something local just to see what we can do to get ready for some of these projects, namely the MUFON aerial surveillance team, which is actually put together by Bill Schroeder, one of our speakers, and basically mimicking the Skywatch program from the 50s that the Air Force conducted, and which was eventually called Project Skyscan, which was a training, project to train civilians to spot aircraft. This is before radar was really widely used, and so they had to use spotters in the field to look for enemy aircraft. And so the word Skywatch actually is where this stuff came from. It's so much enriched in history. And people don't realize, we use that word all the time. People go out, they look at the stars, they look for UFOs, and they call them skywatches. Well, this is where that word came from. And it's just interesting. We actually contacted some of the people that were in part of the Historical Society down here, and I think it was somebody specific with the Air Force and this project. And they actually sent us real pens from that Observer Corps program that they had.
You're kidding.
No, Bill got one, I got one. Originals, and they were like,
jealous.
We have a few of these still sitting around. It was so neat, and they're so interested in what we're doing too. It's just great, and again, a lot of the early reports came from these people. They were coming from these civilians in the field looking for these things. Anyway, so we had the MASS program produced, which is similar. We have volunteers and field investigators who go out during flaps and report back what they're seeing using our protocols. But on top of that, we've been developing a few small things on the side, which is like Project Skyscan, dealing with all sky camera networks, and using the meteorite tracking software that's already available. And even the people who developed that software, the original company who developed it for NASA and I think it's the Florida Institute of Technology, actually want us to tell them when something happens so they can look at their data.
Oh, cool.
They're really interested. They say, just let us know, let us know anytime, and we'll go through the archive and see what we find. And so we're going to be using that data with all sky cameras soon, and then including some passive radar projects. I'm sure you remember Peter Davenport's proposal back in the day. Well, now that technology is feasible, it's cheap. You could probably build that same system now for less than $1,000.
Can you kind of explain what that is?
Passive radar uses either a couple of different things. It can use radio waves, RF, or microwaves, like your cell phone, right? And it can be used as sort of a passive radar, which is, I guess it reflects off of objects like airplanes and other objects, meteorites even, in some cases where it can be heard, audibly in a system, which can eventually be turned into data and tracking data. And it basically does that. It just reflects. It's just like radar, but it uses different types of, technical radiation, I guess you could call it. And one of those is RF. Microwaves is another form of that type of energy that's used to reflect. And these receivers, you don't have to emit anything. So it's already out there. We're flooded with microwaves everywhere, right? Because we all have cell phones. There's cell phone towers everywhere. Well, it's real easy to tap into that by just using a receiver. You just receive the signal and use it as a triangulation, and you can actually acquire something similar to what traditional radar is.
So you're kind of tuning into a frequency that's already being bounced around out there, and you're kind of measuring the bounce.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you look at it on a wavelength graph, it kind of looks like a spike. So like an airplane would look like a giant reflection of that metal, and you can actually visually see it on the graph. But I'm going to let Bill, kind of announce that stuff. I know he's kind of holding back a little bit until he does that because he's got some things he's trying to work out with it. But it does work. It does work, and so. The idea is we're actually going to be doing something at the symposium about this. And we have a lot of representatives from these different projects at the same place, so why not pull them together? So what we're going to do is a little private, but we'll probably stream it or record it and put it on our YouTube later for everybody to watch. But to put them all there as a discussion panel, and we'll have representatives from UFO Data. Obviously, we have several that are going to be there. We have UFO TOG representatives that are going to be there. We're hoping to get CubeSat and another project out in California, MUFON, but they're doing something similar to us here in Florida. So it a little bit different using webcams, but it's an effort that I think everybody needs to start brainstorming. Not necessarily helping each other with their ideas, but at least sharing ideas so we can stay on the same page. Maybe even share data filing systems so we can all use the same one. So when we do have successful projects running, that our data can communicate. We don't have a name for it yet, but some sort of an initiative that we'll probably announce in the near future about bringing all these all these little efforts together in a means of cooperating a little bit, just so we're all there, we know each other, and hey, you have a nuclear physicist, well, I need a radio physicist or something to help out with, or a programmer to help out with programming software for this project. So that's what we're hoping to do, is sort of an exchange program to get them to bring them in to kind of work and cooperate. And we don't know where it'll go from there. It may develop into something much larger.
Cool. That sounds really cool. Now, have you looked at the UFO detector?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard about them. I've heard of the kind of the fake ones that they sell online, but then I've also, seen people use the webcam based.
Yeah, that's the one I was referring to.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. There's even the low frequency radio bound, ones similar to what passive radar is, but they don't really work. But the webcam ones are basically using visual radar, similar to what the meteorite tracking software does. It's the same thing. It's just, the meteorite tracking software does triangulation. When you input the data together, you can actually get triangulation. They're actually able to track meteorites that make it into the atmosphere and to the ground, and they're able to relatively accurately predict impact.
Wow, cool.
If it's large enough. So yeah, it's neat. It's the all the technology is accessible. You just need to get the right formula of people and funding together to get this to actually work, and the right scientists and the right consultants to help out and get these things developed, and hopefully we can start that little process.
This is awesome. That's so exciting, and it's so exciting. All of this stuff is happening at the symposium because I think a lot of people don't realize that, a lot of people have these sort of expectations for MUFON. Yeah. MUFON's supposed to be scientific. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And they don't realize that they are doing these sort of things. Yeah. And that's what's great about you having influence over this symposium, because I know that is where your focus is. Yes. And all of these speakers and these things that are going to help move the field in that direction. That's exciting.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We're excited, and it's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen, which is a good thing. And it's when we put all these minds in the same room, it's who knows what's going to happen, right? So,
yeah, exciting. So a couple other people, John Greenwald, we'll skip him too, just because I talk about John all the time. Yeah, I have him on the show a lot. John is awesome, and I'm always excited about his work. So we featured a lot. Kathleen Martin, who's also I'm a fan of a lot of people, but I guess Kathleen Martin I talk to often.
She's not going to be talking about the usual either. She's going to be something completely different this year. It's not on abductions.
Really? She's going to be speaking for us too on something different. Yep. So that's exciting. Paula Harris, who I've known for many years, so she'll be there speaking. Peter Robbins is the MC. Rich Hoffman. Now, is Rich going to be covering? He is going to be covering the Homeland Security case, right?
Yeah, he's going to be covering the Homeland Security case. I know it's been covered at your symposium there in Arizona, right? Or Phoenix.
Yeah.
And so he's going to kind of come at it from a different angle and talk about some other aspects about it. And, he worked on the project, as you know, along with Robert Powell, myself, Carl Paulson, Larry Cates, Diana Chaviano. And it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to be talking about the facts, the limitations. A lot of people think that, we overly defend our work, right, when we get questioned or whatever, but really we don't. We understand that there is going to be dissent and disagreement, but there's also a lot of support for our findings. And he's going to kind of discuss that and say, and explaining what scientific discourse is and how it works.
Because
it's a fun process.
I don't think, and I haven't been accused of this actually, but at least not that I've seen. I wouldn't doubt if people discuss and say I have a bias towards your group or this project. Yeah. But it's really not. I mean, you guys know how it is. We don't agree on everything when we discuss different cases. We all have our different perspectives, and we're not afraid to disagree with each other. It's just that I agree with you that I don't think you all anybody's being overly defensive. I think you're holding your ground to the facts and what you've been able to establish, rightfully so, because and this is what I love about this case is that there is expert opinion, there is expert input, and no offense to some of the people who are trying to analyze this and have different perspectives, but they're not experts. And so you have to really take that expert opinion and work with that to refute any of those opinions. And especially as a journalist, we have to hold to expert opinion. Those are the authorities. And
and I think there's a lot of misconception on how that process works, and I blame social media for that because people get so used to this anonymous shield that they forget how inquiry actually works. It's not about insulting or making somebody look bad if you just disagree. There is a process to it, and it's and we're open to any other hypothesis. It's not a problem at all. In fact, we encourage it, and we're still waiting for a formal assessment. We've been told that our physics is wrong, but not specifically. We're breaking laws of physics with our hypothesis. Well, that's great. I said, but please, do share with why we are breaking those laws and explain exactly where our calculations are incorrect. We want to know. And that's just thing. We've had an expert mathematician, an expert nuclear physicist, an expert on radar data and radar data analysis. Take a look at these cases, including the thermal imaging experts. It's not like we didn't do our homework. We really tried to say, this is weird. It might be something explainable, but there's just too much here that's not supporting, then these challenges, these null hypotheses. There's too much here supporting, the original hypothesis, which is an unknown, and we can't ignore that either. And so, it's hard work. And I know Rich Hoffman. He's been in ufology for such a long time. He's met some of the big names that we've all heard of, Kehoe. He's been in the field with Hynek. I mean, he's been involved since his teens. So it's just interesting, and you'll get a different perspective from somebody who's been there and done that. So it'd be really neat to hear from him.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. And what else was I? Oh, the other thing I was going to mention about the Homeland Security case is that really I think what's fascinating about your case is the experts who have chimed in on your work have been supportive, and have agreed what has been done with that investigation. To be honest, and this is no offense to anybody out there who is doubtful, there's only one person who I'm interested to see if they do more research and if they present a formal rebuttal to what you all have been doing, because otherwise I just don't see any other interesting cases being raised, at least people who want to put in the work to do a full rebuttal. And that would be Mark D'Antonio. He may submit a full rebuttal. Of course, it takes a lot of work to do so. It took you all, a team of people, a couple of years. So if he submits one, that one I'm really interested in seeing. And I think we're all open to maybe Mark will discover something. Who knows? But that
he still
would be
has a lot of questions, too, about it. So he's, he's like, well, I don't know everything. Like, he needs to sit down with us and we'll give him everything. We have given him everything. But, it's and there's a lot of people say, well, why did you guys take the case independent? And it's like, well, it wasn't our choice. It really wasn't our choice.
Yeah.
It was the witness, and the witness is a federal employee, and he didn't at first he didn't even want to tell us. It was coaxing. It took almost 3 to 4 months just to get the person to talk publicly with me and Diana Chaviano in Miami. So it was very difficult to establish. That.
And let me ask you this, because the Homeland Security did reply to Billy Cox and say, hey, this shouldn't have been released. It was wrong the way it was. The video got out. They essentially then via that admitted it was their video. It was a real video. There were rumors that people lost their jobs. Do you know whether or not that really happened?
Never happened. I did talk to the witness, our witness anyway, recently, and he's heard nothing. But of course, he's not based at the Aguadilla location. He just works there on occasion in the same capacity that the actual pilots work in. But it's these are real people. These are real employees. These are real pilots giving these testimonies. And there's at least 4 individual whistleblowers, if you want to call them. It's because it's not really a secret or classified. But there was at least 4 separate ones. I know NARCAP had one with Richard
Haynes.
Yeah, Richard Haynes. And it's interesting to see all these different perspectives from these witnesses who had no idea that they were coming out to the public about it. They didn't know about the other person, according to our witness anyway. I said, yeah.
Did someone lose their job, or you don't know?
I don't. In Aguadilla, I have no idea. I just know that there was a lot going on there with the release. That's where the release originally happened with the video. It didn't happen here in the U.S., or at least in Florida. It happened in Aguadilla, and I just know that one of the rumors was that there was one of them had a girlfriend that was a reporter, and that's kind of how that person probably got under some hot water about it. But I don't think they got fired.
Yeah. So I guess moving on. Because I wanted to touch on that topic, too, because it's so interesting. Even though we had Rich on recently, you being part of the case, get some updates there. But, of course, if people want more updates, they'll need to come to the symposium. Yes. But Richard Thiem, tell us who he is and what he'll be talking about.
So Richard Thiem has an interesting background. Everything from religion to computer science. He is probably an expert mainly in the hacking conferences that they have upstate. He's a keynote speaker on a regular basis at these technology conferences. His expertise is, internet security or, information technology security systems. He actually used to be a reverend or he used to be an ordained minister for a church and he used to, cater to an Air Force base. So he got to hear some really neat stories there too. And so he's got such a cerebral approach to trying to understand this phenomenon. It's just incredible talking to the guy. So level-headed. He's seen it all, meaning, but he doesn't expect to know everything. And so He's very open-minded, but at the same time very grounded. And he will be giving quite an interesting talk, not only applying his own life experience, but also, basically talking about this issue. We always have in the back of our minds, why isn't the media or the public taking it serious? And, you and I are inside. We're in this niche research field, right? We don't really have perspective that the general public really doesn't look at this very seriously. They may have a fleeting interest by watching a few documentaries on TV or making comments on forums, but 10,000 people interested is nothing compared to the population of our own country. MUFON having 4,000 members or 5,000 members is nothing compared to the population of our countries or the world in the sense of having a real interest in this phenomenon. And he is going to explore, why people can't think seriously about UFOs, the societal reaction to this phenomenon. And then he's going to also probably tell you a few really cool stories. So
cool.
He's got some really neat things to talk about. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. That ought to be interesting. And as far as I know, I don't think he's spoken at another UFO conference.
No, I think this is his first.
Yeah, so that'll be cool. And then finally, Robert Powell, who is also part of the SCU, the Scientific Coalition of Ufology, which you're part of, Rich is part of, and I guess in full disclosure, I'm part of, right?
Yeah. You've helped out with projects and approaching the media and what strategies are for that, because there is a strategy to that. You don't want to mess that up, and we didn't have experience in that. And, we often people say, "Oh, isn't that another group?" I was like, "No, it's a think tank. It's not a group. It's not a membership. It's not MUFON. MUFON is our group. We're part of MUFON. This was set up as a think tank to handle this specific issue, and because it was such a unique problem that we had. So, but it's what it is. And maybe it'll turn into something a little bit different, or collusion with other organizations, something like that. But, it's just a fun effort, and we had to steer it in that direction for this case, and that's what we did. It's just part of what we do. It's, we're in multiple organizations. I know a few of us are in several. Like Robert is part of UFO Data. In fact, I think even Richard Hoffman now is part of UFO Data and NICAP and things like that. So it's, this is what we do. This is our research. This is our field. We like doing on the side of our day jobs, which we all have.
Right. So Robert Powell, he's on the show a lot as well.
Yes.
And we had him speak at the UFO Congress last year about the Homeland Security case. What will he be discussing at the symposium?
Yeah, this year he's going to be talking what we usually do is the top 10 cases, right? The best cases that MUFON has to set forward. He'll have a few guest speakers up there that are from those cases if they're
cool
available. So we're going to try to design this every year. So where we come up and he presents the top 10 cases or however many cases we have for that year. And if the representative investigators are at the symposium, they will have a chance to be up there for about 15 to 20 minutes talking about the specific details of the case.
Cool.
And presenting that, if there's usually with these cases, there's always some sort of piece of evidence, a picture, video, or something. And so a lot of times these cases will have a pretty interesting, story to follow. So, and that's what he's going to be doing this year. And unfortunately, this past year we didn't have, I think we had like 5 that made the bucket or 8, which happens. But we actually pulled in a few cases from January and February that are really interesting that we want to talk about. So,
cool.
So Robert's going to be doing that this year. It's a little bit of extended time too. Instead of the hour, it's 90 minutes, roughly, or just under 90 minutes. And, gives us a lot of time to really dig into what MUFON's working on.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's really cool. That ought to be really interesting. I think that's a great idea. Again, I love when the MUFON Symposium focuses on MUFON because, that's what is, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's everything good with that because there are so many people in MUFON that are doing great work, and MUFON is constantly doing stuff.
Yeah,
constantly investigating, constantly moving forward. So, and I think that's what people want to hear. So that's awesome.
Just another outlet to really communicate our findings to the public.
So cool, and it'll be in Orlando, Florida. That probably has some significance for you that you guys are going to be in Florida, East Coast. Did you want to say something about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's Orlando. I mean, yeah, we've had, tragedies happen there, and we recognize that. And it's a great city, and there's a lot of support. A lot of people are going to be coming out, and a lot of people that you've probably heard of, some famous, or not so famous. I wouldn't call them famous, but just really well respected researchers in the field are all going to be showing up. It's just a really unique place. It's going to be great. It's at the Hilton, Lake Buena Vista Hilton and Orlando, Florida. You can easily find all the information out about the symposium at MUFONSymposium.com. Everything's there. We encourage you guys, if you can make it, do it. I mean, this is a unique event. It's definitely something that we've worked really hard on. And I know the team here in Florida, we've worked on this for about a year, essentially, and we've put together a pretty good program, and we're pretty happy with it. It's kind of on the, as we say, we're going downhill right now. So we've gone over the hard part, and now we just got to show up and set up and do the event, and we're really looking forward to it. So
yeah, just a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, it's the end of this. It's almost exactly a month away. So
yeah. Well, I'm really excited about it. I'm so happy to be speaking. I mean, especially this talk. I mean, I did with MUFON in mind, just kind of engineered for the MUFON audience to help us all kind of see what the other countries are doing, how that can help us, and to for inspiration, but also for ideas. And I think like Leslie Kean, and especially with Hillary Clinton's advisor speaking about UFOs, I think there is room for more mainstream movement in this area, and I think
there needs to be a dialogue for sure. And I think your talk will definitely paint this area that we don't usually hear about. This official government, organized government, organized civilian government. Organizations that look specifically into this subject. This is not a laughing matter subject. They are taking it very seriously.
And people can take it seriously here. And I think we can move that way, especially with the serious sort of work that many of your speakers will be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what we were doing this year, is we wanted to show that there's a real serious side to this phenomenon, and it needs to be taken serious. It's not getting out there and demanding, the governments to come forward, or, demanding truth or anything. It's called, let's go out and find it. Let's go out, investigate, research scientifically, and find out the answers for ourselves. And to do that, we need to make sure that we talk about these very important subjects that we're doing here at the symposium. It's just like your talk. It shows how serious countries will take the subject, and it's a real subject. This is not Hollywood. This is not just something that a fleeting interest or a hobby for many of us. I mean, technically, I guess you could call it a hobby, but it's more than that. It's something that we do because we think we need to do it, because there's a real mystery here. There's something that needs to be solved.
I like the name too, Lake Buena Vista.
Lake Buena Vista.
It's fun to say.
Fancy.
Buena Vista.
It's a nice hotel. I was just there. It's spacious, big, and it's right next to Disney. It's literally on Disney property. So
really,
it's a good excuse. It's good. Everything's cheap this time of year. Yeah, I know it's a little hot, but hey, and it's Florida. It's usually good weather, and you're right there on Disney property. I think you take a free shuttle and you walk across the walking bridge to all the malls and restaurants, and they have these shuttles that take the parks, and it's a really neat place.
Yeah, this will be my first time in Florida. I've never been out there.
Ooh, goody. That'll be great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show again and giving us all this insight. And this was fun because we got to know who's speaking, but we also then got to touch on all of these topics that we wanted to cover.
Yeah, so much going on, Alejandro. It's just a great year.
Yep. Well, thank you so much.
All right, yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much to Morgan Beall for being on the show. Super interesting guy. He's been in this for so long, very credible, and he is the perfect person to be putting together the MUFON Symposium, and I feel it's a lineup that is better than they've had in quite some time. And I'm not saying that just because I'm on the lineup. So even if you took me off of the lineup, which that would be, a lot of you are gasping and thinking, oh my God, they can't do that. They can't do that. Well, relax. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. It's just a hypothetical. If they were to do so, it would still be a really great symposium with some really cool speakers. So as you heard, lots of really, really cool people. And of course, there are those of you who relish in the thought of me being taken off the list and thinking, wow, that would be great. They could get somebody really cool. But but my talk, I think it's going to be really cool, guys. So I'm going to be talking about the international organizations that have official government UFO investigation groups. Some of them have them with the as part of their military. Some of them are part of their FAA. Some of them are part of their kind of NASA space group. So they're all different. However, the reasons that they began investigating UFOs on a governmental level is very interesting. Typically, these are really cool sightings that cause them to take this issue really seriously, or at least to get a lot of public pressure to do so. So I hope you can make it to the conference. If not, I think they're going to be making DVDs and stuff that you'll be able to have afterwards. But, speaking of conferences, the biggest, and dare I say best, a conference is the UFO Congress, and we've got that going on in February again, 2017. I will be speaking there also. I haven't put myself on the website yet, but I'm going to be speaking about UFOs and religion. However, the angle is going to be how UFOs and the belief in extraterrestrials has influenced religions and what they think of that, but also how it's influenced the beginning of new religions. And I think, going forward, they're going to have a big impact on the new religions that come forth. And we'll examine that. And I think it's a really interesting examination on just the impact that this belief and this topic has on religion. And religion's really important. There's a lot of people that subscribe to different religions. Now, I'm agnostic on practically everything, so I don't really subscribe to one religious belief. In interest of full disclosure, I guess philosophically, I kind of align a lot with Buddhism, but also I think that's similar to the teachings of Buddhists or Jesus and other prophets. With the peace and love and sympathy and compassion and all of those things, which I just feel are really important. But I'm not necessarily a believer. And as you know, I'm not really a believer in anything, hard and fast, even when it comes to the paranormal, at least when it comes to supernatural kind of things. I think there's interesting evidence towards different phenomena, which I obviously am just compelled to examine and research in the search for truth and the hidden mysteries that are out there. But so that's my perspective. So I'm not saying that any religion is better than another, but just taking an examination on what these different religions think and the studies on how people will react, if there really is to be some sort of disclosure in the future. So I think the talk's going to be a lot of fun that I'm doing at the UFO Congress, this religious one. But we have posted the first batch of speakers at the UFO Congress. So go to ufocongress.com and you'll see them. There's about 11 there. Those of you who are listeners to this podcast are going to recognize all of those names, probably most, if not all. I'm sure all of them I've interviewed before, but some really cool people I'm very excited about. You know what? Someone I'm not sure if I've interviewed who's going to be on there is Ryan Sprague. I think I've talked about that before. Actually, didn't we interview him recently? I'm so confused. But he's awesome. I mean, this kid rocks. I call him a kid because he's much younger than most of us. I think he's in his 20s. But, everybody, to know Ryan is to love Ryan. I mean, a great guy, and everybody's really excited. I am super honored that the UFO Congress is going to be his first venue for a UFO lecture. And he's getting a book published by Richard Dolan's Press, and that will be out by the Congress, so he'll have him there to sign, and he'll be talking about information in his book, and you could read more about his talk at ufocongress.com. So I know this guy for many years to come is going to be doing UFO lectures. He's also a playwright, and I'm sure he's going to be, I think they made a script out of a movie script for an independent, some people in New York. That's where he lives, actually, in Manhattan. They did a movie based off of one of his scripts, so he's probably going to be some big Hollywood like script writer and movie writer and all this stuff. But until then, he'll be speaking for us at the Congress. There are other script writers. For instance, Paul Davids, he spoke last year at the UFO Congress. And there are, I guess I'll say this without revealing too much, that there are other people in the movie industry that are interested in this topic, who are often involved with events, who we at Open Minds are friends with, very close friends with, and we may have more announcements for movie people coming to speak at the UFO Congress. So I'll put it that way to add some intrigue into your lives. That's what you come here for anyway, right? Some intrigue and adventure. So, thank you to Morgan Beall. I'm so excited to, speaking of adventure, go to Orlando and to speak for the UFO Congress at the Lake Buena Vista Hilton. So that's where you can go to the MUFON Symposium. You can just Google that, or mufonsymposium.com to find out more about their event. It's only a few weeks away. It's like at the end of August, so it's in about a month. But I'm pretty sure tickets are available and rooms are still available, so you can get going there. Otherwise, what else is going on I'm supposed to tell you about? Oh, you might have noticed, on our YouTube page, we have been kind of mixing things up. We're going to be trying some new things. So we have our Open Minds UFO report, which we're going to be doing less frequently, and we're going to be focusing on UFO sightings, especially UFO videos, pretty much that are submitted to MUFON and that Roger Marsh writes about and posts on our website. We'll be focusing on that. We're also doing this new thing where we're doing these short clips. We're going into our archives of UFO photographs. These are usually pretty old, like before the 70s or 70s era and earlier. So pre-Photoshop kind of era. And we're posting these short videos on that, and we're doing some cool stuff with our social media where we're embedding those videos in Facebook and YouTube. So when they pop up, some of you have probably seen this, they play right on your social media. How cool is that? We are cool. We're really cool when you sit back and think about it. Wow, not to pat ourselves on the back, but I guess that's what I'm doing. So there. But I love these videos. It's really cool. So we'll be doing that. And like I talked about with Martin earlier, we're going to do this Open Minds magazine videos where we go in-depth stories on some of the most exciting stuff. And I'll tell you right now, the first one is going to be on the flap, or actually the UFO sightings over Washington, D.C. in 1952. They are more important and fascinating than you realize, people. And we'll be discussing that in the upcoming Open Minds UFO magazine YouTube news program that will be forthcoming. So, very exciting. If you're not excited now, slap yourself in the face, because you should be excited. Pour that hot coffee on your desk in your lap, because you should be at that level of excitement, just jumping up and down and hooting and hollering and your fellow coworkers, if you're at work, should be flipping out and thinking you're crazy, which isn't abnormal for you probably because you're the office UFO person. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's show. I certainly did. I enjoyed having you here listening to us. Thank you so much for joining us most every week. Actually, we've been pretty good. We've had a lot of shows, so I'll try my best, and I apologize for not being weekly. But like you heard me tell Martin, I'm moving, so it's been difficult lately, and we've had some travel. Everybody doing their vacation in the summer, especially here in Arizona. It's been 110 consistently for weeks now. So 110 plus. I mean 110 during the day is like the low. So it's been super hot. So no wonder we try to get the heck out of here during this time of year. But I'll try my best to be more consistent. If you have suggestions also on people you would like to hear that maybe I haven't interviewed, that would be great. Or if you want updates from someone I have interviewed, feel free to email us at contact@openminds.tv. That's contact@openminds.tv. And let me know who you might want to hear, and we'll try to arrange that because there's a lot of cool people out there, and sometimes I forget about some of the cool people out there. So thank you very much for listening. I guess that's it. Thank you to Caleb Hanks for doing the opening and close music. And adios, muchachos.